Emma Tran collapsed into the only chair in her run-down Portland studio. Her back ached from a double shift at St. Mary's Hospital. On the futon, her 4-year-old son, Noah, wheezed in his sleep, clutching his blanket. His asthma was getting worse. Her phone buzzed. A text from her landlord, rent's 3 days overdue. Last warning. Her chest tightened. With trembling hands, she typed a message to her sister. Claire, can you lend me $200? Noah's meds are out. Send out relief lasted only a second. The name on the recipient line wasn't Claire. It was Nicholas Carter, the billionaire CEO she'd only ever seen on magazine covers. Before she could delete it, a reply appeared. Your address. Emma froze. She typed frantically. Wrong number. Another message cut her off. On my way. Don't leave. Outside, a black limousine rolled down the broken street. Curtains twitched. Neighbors whispered. Her phone buzzed once more. Open the door. I'm here. A knock shook the flimsy door. Through the crack, Emma saw a suited driver holding a silver-embossed envelope. Mr. Carter sent me, he said calmly. Her heart raced. You've got the wrong person. But the man only asked, You're Emma Tran, right? And handed her the envelope. Then he returned to the limo. Inside was a single note, handwritten. Emma, I believe the child is mine. We need to talk. NCHER blood ran cold. She dropped the letter just as Noah stirred, coughing. Another knock. Then a voice, low, commanding, unmistakable. Emma, open the door. She opened it a crack. And there he was, Nicholas Carter, taller than she imagined, his presence filling the shabby hallway, his storm blue eyes fixed on her. Double quotes, Mr. Carter, this is a mistake, she said quickly. I sent that text by accident. You shouldn't be here. He looked past her, toward the futon where Noah coughed softly. Something flickered in his expression. That's your son. Emma stepped in his way. None of your business. But Nicholas entered anyway, calm and deliberate, the apartment shrinking around him. You asked for help. I'm here. I don't need your charity. This isn't charity, he said quietly. It's responsibility. Her heart lurched. Noah is mine, Nicholas said. Emma shook with anger. He's my son. Mine alone. Noah rubbed his eyes, peeking over his stuffed dinosaur. Mummy, who's that? Emma forced a smile. Nobody, baby. Go back to sleep. But Nicholas crouched, voice soft. Hi, Noah. I'm a friend. Emma pulled her son close. That's enough. Leave. Nicholas rose, gaze sweeping the bills, the inhaler, the leaking sink. His jaw tightened. I won't leave you drowning. Not when he's my son too. Her voice cracked. Stop saying that. You can't buy your way into our lives. His composure slipped. I didn't walk away because I didn't care. I thought it was the only way to give you a chance at happiness. Her breath caught. Rage and confusion collided. You don't get to rewrite history, Nicholas. But his voice steadied again. I made mistakes. I won't walk away again. Noah tugged Emma's sleeve and whispered, Mummy. I like him. Her world tilted. Emma's phone buzzed. A banking notification. She opened it and froze. A deposit. Not $200, not $1,000. $1 million. Her breath caught. What the hell did you do? Nicholas's voice was calm, almost casual. I fixed it. Her hands shook. This is insane. I can't accept this. You already have, he said evenly. The money's in your account. Her anger flared. This isn't help, it's a bomb. You can't throw millions at me and expect everything to magically fix itself. Nicholas stepped closer, eyes blazing. I don't expect magic. I expect to finally do right by my son. Emma's chest ached. Pride told her to scream, to throw him out. But another part of her, terrified, exhausted, knew she couldn't keep going like this. Noah coughed again, his small body shaking. Emma rushed to him, whispering comfort until he settled back into restless sleep. When she turned, Nicholas was still there, hands in his pockets, gaze steady. What do you want, really? She demanded. He didn't hesitate. To be part of Noah's life, his voice roughened. And yours, if you'll let me. Emma's throat closed. It was the kind of thing she'd once dreamed of hearing from a man: stability, family, promises. But from him now it felt dangerous. Unreal. You don't get to decide that, she whispered. You can't just buy forgiveness. His expression hardened slightly. This isn't about forgiveness. It's about what's ours. Outside, the limo engine rumbled, neighbors still whispering behind cracked doors. Inside, Emma stood frozen, caught between fury and fear, gratitude and longing, and for the first time in years, she realized her life would never be the same again. Emma hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the number glowing on her phone. $1 million. She wanted to scream, to send it back, to pretend it had never happened. But she COULDN, single quotes. By morning, Noah's fever spiked. His inhaler was nearly empty. Emma was pacing the tiny apartment when the knock came again. This time, it wasn't Nicholas. It was his driver, standing in the hallway with clinical calm. Mr. Carter requests you come with us, he said, as if announcing a dentist appointment. There's a doctor waiting. Emma's first instinct was to slam the door. We're fine, she lied. A sharp cough from Noah betrayed her. The driver's gaze flicked toward the sound. The car is outside, he said simply. He won't take no for an answer. The limousine's leather seats felt alien under Emma's tense body. Noah, drowsy and pale, leaned against her. Outside the tinted windows, Portland blurred past graffiti, cracked sidewalks, then high-rises and glass towers. Emma clutched Noah's backpack like a shield. She hated every second of this. Hated that she was in his world now, being pulled into something she didn't understand. Across from her, Nicholas sat perfectly at ease, hands folded, watching Noah more than her. The doctor's ready, he said quietly. He'll get what he needs. Emma snapped, You had no right to drag us into this. His gaze shifted to her, steady and unsettling. Emma, I don't need your permission to care about my son. Her chest tightened. She wanted to scream again, but Noah shifted in his sleep, murmuring softly, and Nicholas's face changed. The steel melted, just for a second. What she saw there almost broke her, raw, unguarded longing. The limousine slowed, turning off the main road into a long, tree-lined drive. Emma's breath hitched. At the end of it rose a mansion of glass and stone, modern angles gleaming in the morning sun. She pressed Noah closer to her side. What am I doing here? Inside, the house was another world. Polished marble floors, endless windows spilling light, the faint scent of citrus and cedar. Everything about it screamed wealth and control. Emma felt smaller with every step. A woman in a white coat was already waiting, calm and professional. Nicholas gestured toward her. Dr. Hayes. She specializes in pediatrics. Emma stiffened. You brought a doctor here. For him, Nicholas said simply. His eyes flicked to Noah, still clinging to Emma's hand. He deserves more than a half-empty inhaler. Emma's pride screamed to protest. But when Noah coughed again, the sound raw and tight, her resistance faltered. They moved into a sunlit room that looked more like a spa than a clinic. Noah sat nervously on the edge of a pristine white couch, while Dr. Hayes examined him with calm efficiency. Emma hovered, defensive. He's fine. Just a flare-up. Dr. Hayes met her gaze gently. He needs stronger medication and regular monitoring. It's nothing you did wrong. It just requires consistency and resources. Emma's stomach twisted. Resources, a polite word for money. She felt Nicholas's presence behind her, quiet but immovable. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't even speaking. But the truth pressed in all the same. She couldn't give Noah what this man could. When the exam ended, Noah leaned against Emma, clutching his dinosaur. His small voice was soft but clear. Mummy, I like it here. Emma's heart cracked in two. Nicholas finally spoke, low and certain. He belongs here, Emma, with me, with both of us. Her throat burned. Pride, fear, love, they all collided inside her. And for the first time, she realized this wasn't a visit. It was the beginning of a war she wasn't ready for. When Dr. Hayes left, silence stretched across the vast room. Emma sat with Noah in her lap, feeling like a trespasser in a world built of glass and steel. Nicholas stood by the window, hands in his pockets, gaze fixed on the skyline. Finally, he turned. I want a DNA test, he said. Calm, certain. Emma's breath caught. Absolutely not. His eyes didn't waver. It will prove what I already know. You don't know anything, she snapped. You walk in here with your money and your arrogance and think you can just claim him. He's not some asset for you to acquire. Nicholas stepped closer, his voice still low. I'm not trying to acquire him, Emma. I'm trying to claim my son. Her chest burned. No, he's mine. Mine alone. Nicholas leaned down, close enough that she could see the hard lines of exhaustion at the edges of his perfect facade. I will not walk away this time, he said softly, but with steel underneath. And deep down, you know he's mine too. Emma's throat closed. She wanted to scream, to throw him out of his glass palace, to protect Noah from everything this man represented. But Noah tugged her sleeve, looking up with wide, innocent eyes. Mummy, is he really my dad? Emma's world froze. Nicholas's gaze locked on hers. Unyielding, waiting, and in that unbearable silence, Emma realized she no longer held all the answers. The limousine dropped her back at the apartment just as the city slid into dusk. Streetlights flickered, buzzing faintly over cracked sidewalks and overflowing trash cans. Emma carried Noah upstairs in her arms, his head heavy on her shoulder, the faint scent of hospital disinfectant clinging to his clothes. When she unlocked the door and stepped inside, the contrast nearly crushed her. Hours ago, she had walked across marble floors, light spilling from windows higher than church ceilings. Now, she was back in her one-room studio, its walls closing in, the air heavy with stale takeout and damp plaster. Emma laid Noah on the futon, pulling the superhero blanket up around his chin. He stirred, eyes half open, mumbling, Mummy, do we go back there tomorrow? Her chest tightened. "No, baby. We're home now, but I liked the big house," he said sleepily. "And the nice lady doctor. She didn't hurt me." His eyes fluttered shut again, breath softening as he sank back into sleep. Emma sat on the edge of the futon, staring at him. She brushed a hand over his hair, guilt burning through her. For 4 years she had carried everything alone, the bills, the midnight fevers, the fear of not being enough. And now, in one reckless slip of a text, Nicholas Carter had crashed into their world like a storm that wouldn't blow past. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against her palms. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A notification blinked again. Balance, plus $1 million. Emma's stomach turned. She had tried all afternoon not to look at it, but it sat there, taunting her. Money that could erase every bill, every late notice, every sleepless night of worry. And yet it felt like poison in her account. Her mind replayed the day, Nicholas's calm voice, the doctor's quiet authority, Noah's innocent words. "I like it here." Emma gritted her teeth. She couldn't let Noah fall into that world, into Nicholas's gravity. She wouldn't. But deep inside, a darker thought pulsed. What if he belongs there more than here? She slammed the thought away, clutching Noah tighter. "You're mine," she whispered fiercely, her voice breaking. "Mine alone." Outside, a siren wailed through the city streets. Emma sat in the shadows, listening to her son's even breaths. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if she was strong enough to keep the storm at bay, high above downtown Portland. The top floor of Carter Innovations glowed against the night. Floor 2 ceiling glass offered a sweeping view of the city, but Nicholas wasn't looking at it. He sat behind his steel-grey desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, a tumbler of untouched scotch at his elbow. His assistant, Jordan, stood across from him, shifting uncomfortably. "Sir, with all due respect, this is a little personal, isn't it?" Nicholas's gaze lifted, sharp as a blade. "Find out, quietly." Jordan cleared his throat. "You mean a paternity test?" Nicholas didn't answer right away. His mind replayed the image of a little boy clutching a worn dinosaur toy, coughing until his small body shook. The boy's eyes clear, dark, wide head pierced through every wall Nicholas had built around himself. "Yes," he said finally, his voice low but firm. "A test. I want certainty." Jordan hesitated. "And if the result is what you think it is?" Nicholas leaned back in his chair, the city's lights burning like fire across the glass behind him. For the first time all day, the weight of the question pressed on him, not just numbers, not just deals, but something human, raw, undeniable. "If he's mine," Nicholas said slowly, his hand tightening on the tumbler until the glass creaked, "then there will be no more distance. No more excuses." Jordan nodded stiffly. "Understood." When he left, silence filled the office again. Nicholas stared at the skyline, but what he saw wasn't Portland at night. It was a 4-year-old boy, with his eyes, his blood, his future, and Nicholas knew nothing would stop him from claiming what was his the next evening. Emma sat at Claire's kitchen table, a chipped mug of coffee cooling between her hands. The smell of garlic and butter clung to the air. Claire's husband had just finished cooking dinner for their 2 kids, who were now chasing each other down the hall. Claire, younger by 2 years but always the more grounded one, leaned forward. "You have to tell me everything again." Slowly this time, Emma rubbed her temples. "I told you he just showed up, out of nowhere, with his car, his doctor, everything, and he gave you $1 million. Emma winced. Not gave, dumped, like tossing loose change in a jar. Claire's eyes widened. Do you realize what that could do for you and Noah? Rent, school, medical bills. You wouldn't have to live like this anymore. Emma's hands tightened around the mug. That money is a chain. Once I take it, he owns me. He owns us. Claire studied her for a long moment. Maybe it's not about you. Emma froze. What's that supposed to mean? Claire's tone softened. Maybe it's about Noah. He deserves more than hand-me-down sneakers and cheap inhalers. He deserves a father, and like it or not, Nicholas Carter wants to be that. The words landed heavy. Emma stared at the steam curling from her coffee. He doesn't want to be a father. He wants control. He wants to win. That's all men like him know. Claire reached across the table, covering her sister's shaking hands. Or maybe he's just a man who made mistakes and wants a second chance. Emma jerked her hands back, blinking hard against the sting in her eyes. Not like this. Not on his terms. From the hall, Noah's laughter rang out as he played with his cousins, innocent, carefree. Emma's chest ached. She wanted to freeze that sound, to shield it from the storm building outside, but she knew storms didn't care who they drowned. 2 days later, Emma returned to her apartment with a grocery bag balanced on her hip, Noah skipping at her side. She was exhausted but relieved she'd managed to stretch $50 into a week's worth of food. When she reached her door, she froze. The lock was intact. The door was closed. But something felt wrong. Inside the futon was made, Noah's toys stacked neatly in a basket. She never left them like that. A chill slid down her spine. She set the groceries down slowly, her eyes scanning the room. On the counter sat Noah's toothbrush, carefully wrapped in a plastic bag. Emma's stomach dropped. Someone had been here. Her breath quickened. She grabbed Noah, pulling him behind her. Stay close, baby. The neighbors hadn't seen anything. The building manager claimed the cameras hadn't worked in months. But Emma knew. This wasn't random. This was Nicholas. Her phone buzzed. A new message. You should really change his toothbrush more often. Kids deserve better. NC. Emma's hand shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. Rage roared up in her chest, hot and blinding. He hadn't just crossed a line, he had bulldozed it. She stared at Noah, blissfully unaware, humming to himself as he unpacked the groceries. Tears burned her eyes. She had fought for years to build a fragile, private world for the two of them, and in a single move, Nicholas had invaded it. Emma clutched the phone, whispering to herself through clenched teeth, "This is war." Nicholas sat alone in his office, the city glittering behind him like a million indifferent stars. A thin envelope lay on the desk, its edges crisp, official. For a man who dealt in billion-dollar contracts, mergers that spanned continents, this should have been nothing, just paper, numbers, facts. But his hand hesitated on the seal. Finally, he tore it open. His eyes scanned the page, each line burning deeper into him. Paternity. Probability. 99.99%. Nicholas let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. His chest tightened. He leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. 1,000 emotions colliding inside him: relief, regret, fury at lost years, and something else he couldn't name. He thought of Noah's cough, the way the boy's small hand clutched that dinosaur, the spark of curiosity in his eyes. my son, the words echoed, strange on his tongue, fragile and powerful all at once. Nicholas Carter, the man who could buy companies, silence rivals, bend markets, suddenly felt small, because no amount of money could give him back the nights he'd missed, the birthdays he hadn't known existed, the bedtime stories Emma must have told alone. He pressed the paper flat on the desk, his jaw tightening. "He's mine," he whispered. Not like a claim, not like a victory, like a vow, for the first time in years. Nicholas Carter's hands trembled, and when Jordan knocked softly on the door, Nicholas's voice was steady again, but colder, sharper. "Prepare the car. I'm going to see them." Emma was folding laundry when the knock came. Sharp, deliberate. Her stomach sank. She didn't need to look through the peephole to know who it was. When she opened the door, Nicholas stood there, tailored suit immaculate, a thin folder in his hand. His eyes were unreadable, but the tension rolling off him filled the hallway. "We need to talk," he said. Emma stepped outside, pulling the door nearly closed behind her. "No, whatever you came to say, I don't want to hear it." Nicholas held the folder out. "You should." She stared at it like it was a loaded gun. Slowly, she took it, flipping it open. The letters blurred at first, then sharpened. Paternity probability, 99.99%. Her chest constricted. Her throat burned. She snapped the folder shut and shoved it back at him. "You had no right. No right to invade our lives, to take things without asking." "I had every right," Nicholas cut in, his voice low but fierce. "Because now there's no denying it. Noah is my son." The words hung between them, heavy, final. Emma's hands shook. She wanted to scream, to tear the paper in half, to make it all untrue. But through the half-open door, Noah's laughter drifted out. He came running, clutching his dinosaur, his cheeks flushed with life. He stopped short when he saw Nicholas. His gaze bounced between them, curious. "Mummy," he asked, voice bright, innocent, unknowing. "Are we a family now?" Emma froze. Nicholas's jaw clenched, eyes fixed on her, waiting, and in that fragile silence, Emma realized the war she'd feared had already begun. Emma's day had been ordinary, until it wasn't. She'd worked a morning shift at the hospital cafeteria, then hurried across town to pick Noah up from preschool. The October air was crisp, the leaves crunching under her sneakers as she walked up the familiar path. She spotted Noah through the playground fence, chasing bubbles with 2 other kids, his laughter carrying on the breeze. Her heart softened. For a moment, it felt like the world was normal again. Then the shouting started. "Emma Tran, is it true your son belongs to Nicholas Carter? Ma'am, is this the billionaire's child? Did Carter pay you off to keep quiet?" Cameras flashed, blinding her. Paparazzi, a dozen of them, seemed to appear out of nowhere, crowding the sidewalk. Microphones jutted toward her face. Emma froze. Panic surged through her veins. Noah ran to her, clutching her leg, eyes wide. "Mummy, what's happening?" "Back up," she snapped, shielding him with her body. "Leave us alone." But the questions kept coming, louder, sharper, crueler. Every parent at the playground turned to stare. Teachers rushed to the fence, trying to push reporters back, but they were relentless. Emma's breath hitched. This was her worst nightmare. She'd worked so hard to keep Noah invisible, safe in their small world, and now dash this dot. Then, out of the chaos, a sleek black car slid to the curb. The rear door opened, and Nicholas Carter stepped out. Even surrounded by the frenzy, his presence stilled the air. Tall, composed, dressed in charcoal grey, he moved with quiet authority. "Enough," Nicholas said, his voice cutting clean through the noise. The reporters faltered. Cameras still flashed, but the questions died down under the weight of his tone. Nicholas's eyes found Emma, then dropped to Noah clinging to her side. He crossed the pavement, ignoring the chaos, and placed a steady hand on Emma's shoulder. His grip was firm, grounding. "Come with me," Emma stiffened. "I don't." But Noah clutched her hand tighter, whispering, "Mummy, I'm scared." And before she could protest again, Nicholas was guiding them both toward the car, shielding them with his body. The crowd parted, the cameras snapping furiously, but none dared step in his path. As the door shut behind them, the world outside was reduced to muffled shouts and flashes of light. Inside, silence. Emma's pulse raced as she pulled Noah into her lap. She glared at Nicholas across the leather seat. "This is exactly what I was afraid of." Nicholas's jaw tightened, but his eyes stayed on her. "And it's exactly why you can't fight this alone anymore." The car didn't take them home. Instead, Nicholas directed the driver toward the Pearl District, where glittering storefronts and rooftop restaurants lit up the evening sky. Emma pressed Noah close beside her, glaring at Nicholas. "I said, take us home." He didn't look at her. "You and Noah need to eat. Properly." Her jaw clenched. "We can eat at home." "Home," Nicholas said quietly, "is currently swarming with paparazzi. They'll follow you to your door." Emma fell silent, hating that he was right. The car stopped in front of a restaurant with glass walls and valet parking. Emma felt her stomach knot as a doorman rushed to open the door. Inside, chandeliers glittered, polished cutlery sparkled, and waiters in crisp black suits moved with rehearsed grace. Emma's thrift store sweater unworn. Jeans felt like a spotlight of shame. "Mummy, look." Noah gasped, pointing at a fountain in the lobby where koi fish swam under the glass floor. His wonder softened her, if only for a second. They were seated at a corner table, away from prying eyes. Nicholas ordered without looking at the menu steak. Salmon, pasta for Noah. Emma sat stiff, fingers tangled in the cloth napkin. When the food arrived, Noah dug in happily, twirling noodles and giggling. Emma watched him with a bittersweet ache. He looked so at ease here, like he belonged. Nicholas finally spoke. He should have this. A place where he doesn't have to worry. Schools that will challenge him. Doctors who can monitor his health. Tutors who can give him every opportunity. Emma snapped her head up, fire in her eyes. "He doesn't need your world. He needs me." Nicholas didn't flinch. "I'm not saying he doesn't, but you can't deny he deserves more than hand-me-downs and ER visits. You've done everything you can, Emma, but it's not enough anymore." Her throat tightened. "Don't you dare say that. You think money fixes everything. You think glittering walls and perfect meals replace love. I've bled for this child. Every second of his life has been mine." Nicholas leaned in, his voice low but unwavering. "And now it's mine too." The words hit like a blade. Emma gripped her napkin until it tore, her heart pounding across the table. Noah laughed. Sauce smeared on his chin, oblivious to the war raging above him. The ride back from the restaurant was quiet. Noah had fallen asleep in his booster seat, his head tilted, soft snores filling the car. Emma tucked his jacket around him, brushing a kiss against his hair before leaning back with a tired sigh. Across from her, Nicholas watched in silence. For once, The sharpness in his eyes seemed dulled, replaced by something harder to define. Emma finally broke the quiet. You keep talking like you have all the answers, like you're some savior swooping in. But you weren't there, Nicholas. You left. His jaw tightened. You think I don't know that? Her voice cracked. Then tell me why. Tell me why you walked away and left me to raise our son alone. For a long time, the hum of the car was the only answer. Nicholas's gaze drifted to the window, to the blur of streetlights, before returning to her. My father died when I was 22, he said, voice low, even. The company was collapsing. Debt, lawsuits, vultures, circling. I was expected to step in and hold it together. Overnight, I went from being someone's son to being everyone's lifeline. Emma's breath hitched. She hadn't expected him to answer at all, let alone peel back something raw, I thought. Nicholas continued, his hands clasped tight, that letting you go would spare you. Spare you from being crushed by the weight of my world. I convinced myself you'd find someone better, someone who could give you peace instead of chaos. Emma's eyes stung. And you never once thought I deserved a choice. His gaze locked on hers, steady, pained. I thought I was protecting you. She let out a hollow laugh, bitterness burning her throat. You weren't protecting me. You abandoned me. You abandoned him. Nicholas didn't answer. For the first time, he looked less like the untouchable billionaire and more like a man carrying regrets too heavy for even his empire to shoulder. The car rolled on. Noah's small breaths steady in the dark. Between them, silence settled again, thicker, sharper, filled with everything unsaid. It started with a cough. Emma barely noticed at first. Noah had always been prone to them, especially at night. She rubbed his back gently, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Go back to sleep." But within minutes, the cough turned sharp, ragged, each breath a struggle. Noah's small chest rose and fell too fast, his face paling. Panic shot through Emma as she grabbed for the inhaler on the nightstand, empty. Her heart lurched. She'd meant to refill it tomorrow. Tomorrow was too late. "Noah, stay with me," she begged, scooping him into her arms. His breaths were shallow, wheezing, every sound like sandpaper tearing her apart. Emma fumbled for her phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. The dispatcher's calm voice was agony against her terror. "Ambulance, ETA, 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Emma's world spun. She clutched Noah tighter, tears blurring her vision. "Please, baby, please." A pounding knock at the door. Strong, urgent. Emma's head snapped up. Before she could even move, the lock clicked. Someone had a key. The door burst open, and Nicholas filled the doorway, a storm in a tailored suit. What happened? His voice was sharp, controlled, but his eyes went straight to Noah. He can breathe, his inhalers empty. I called Emma, choked out. Nicholas didn't waste a second. He scooped Noah into his arms as if he weighed nothing. "My car now." Emma stumbled after him down the stairwell, adrenaline blurring everything. The black sedan roared to life, doors flung open. Nicholas slid inside, with Noah cradled against him, barking orders to his driver. "Clear every light. Straight to St. Mary's. Don't stop for anything." The car shot forward, weaving through traffic as if the streets bent to his command. Emma sat pressed against Nicholas, holding Noah's hand, whispering frantic prayers. For the first time, she saw fear in Nicholas's face, not the fear of losing a deal, but the raw human terror of losing a child. "Stay with me." "Son, Nicholas whispered, his composure cracking. "I've got you. I promise." Emma turned her tear-streaked face toward him. In that moment, in the blur of sirens and headlights, Nicholas wasn't a billionaire or a stranger. He was just a father, desperate and unbreakable. The ER lights were blinding. Nurses rushed Noah onto a gurney, slipping an oxygen mask over his face as monitors beeped in rapid rhythm. Emma followed close, her hands trembling, her voice breaking with questions the staff brushed aside. "Is he okay? Will he be okay?" Nicholas trailed behind them, silent but radiating authority that made the staff step faster, sharper. Within minutes, Noah was settled in a pediatric room, his breathing steadier, a faint pink returning to his cheeks. Emma collapsed into the chair beside the bed, clutching Noah's small hand. Her body shook with the aftermath of fear. Nicholas stood near the window, shoulders rigid, staring out at the dark hospital parking lot. For a long while, the only sound was the steady hiss of oxygen. The monitor's rhythmic beep bought finally. Emma whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Nicholas turned, slowly. His face was pale, drawn tighter than she'd ever seen. "You really think I'd walk away?" After that? Her throat tightened. She wanted to throw his words back, to remind him that he had walked away once. But then she saw his hands shaking, clenched into fists to hide the tremor. For the first time, Nicholas Carter didn't look invincible. He looked like a man gutted by fear. "I thought I lost him," he admitted quietly. His voice cracked on the words, raw and unfamiliar. One minute, he was laughing at dinner. The next, I couldn't breathe either. Not until I knew he was safe. Emma blinked at him, stunned. She had braced for arrogance, control, commands, but not this. Not honesty carved open like a wound. Nicholas rubbed a hand across his face, sighing. "I've spent years convincing myself nothing could touch me. Not rivals, not markets, not failure. But that boy," his voice broke again, softer this time. "He could destroy me without even trying." Emma's chest ached. She looked at Noah, then back at Nicholas, and for a fleeting second, she saw not the billionaire CEO, but the man she'd once loved. Raw and unguarded, it terrified her, because she didn't know if her walls were strong enough to keep him out much longer. The hospital room had finally gone quiet. Noah slept soundly now, his little chest rising and falling in rhythm with the oxygen. The beeping monitor had slowed to something steady, almost soothing. Emma sat slumped in the chair beside him, exhaustion weighing her down like chains. Her head leaned against the bed rail, her fingers still laced through Noah's. The adrenaline that had carried her through the night was gone, leaving only raw fatigue and the echo of fear. Nicholas sat across from her, in a chair he looked far too large for. His usual armor, precision, control, detachment was cracked. The faint lines around his eyes seemed deeper, his tie loosened, his hands resting uselessly on his knees. He watched Emma for a long time. The way she held on to Noah, as if letting go would end the world. The way her body still trembled with remnants of panic. The way her face, even pale and weary, looked achingly familiar. "Emma," he said softly. Her eyes flickered open, unfocused. "What?" he hesitated. The words that came next weren't planned, weren't calculated like the deals he made every day. They slipped out, raw and unguarded. "I never stopped loving you." The words hung heavy in the sterile air. More jarring than the sound of alarms or rushing doctors had been hours ago. Emma blinked, dazed, unsure if she'd heard him right. Her body was too tired to react, her mind too tangled to process. Nicholas leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees, his voice barely above a whisper. Not for one day, not for 1 second. Emma's throat worked, but no words came. She wanted to tell him to stop, to take it back, to remind him of the pain he'd caused. But her heart betrayed her fluttering at a rhythm she hadn't felt in years. Her eyelids grew heavy again, exhaustion pulling her under. As sleep blurred the edges of her vision, she heard his voice one last time. Quiet and certain. I'm not losing you again. Emma drifted into sleep with tears slipping silently down her cheeks, certain if those words were real, or just the cruel trick of a dream, and Nicholas sat there in the dim light, watching over both of them, knowing that for the first time in years, he had something to lose that no fortune could buy. The hospital discharged Noah the next afternoon. His breathing was steady now, his cheeks flushed with the pink of recovery, but Emma's nerves were still frayed raw. She carried a paper bag of prescriptions under one arm, Noah's backpack slung over the other, and her son's small hand clasped tight in hers. When they stepped outside, the autumn air was sharp, almost cleansing. Emma wanted nothing more than to take Noah home, curl up on their feet, and forget that Nicholas Carter existed. But Nicholas was waiting by the car. He stood apart from the others, leaving the hospital. Tall, immaculate, hands in his coat pockets. His eyes found hers instantly. Not the cold, unreadable CEO mask she'd seen before. Something heavier, quieter. Emma stiffened. You didn't have to stay. I wasn't leaving without knowing he was safe, Nicholas said evenly, nodding at Noah. Noah, oblivious to the tension, beamed. Hi, he tugged his dinosaur out of his backpack and held it up proudly. I'm better now. Nicholas crouched down, the corners of his mouth softening. I can see that. You gave us a scare, little man. Emma's chest ached. He sounded like a father, too much like one. She tugged Noah gently toward the bus stop. We'll manage from here. Nicholas straightened, following. Emma, wait. She spun on him, fire flashing in her eyes. You don't get to do this. You don't get to swoop in, save the day, and think it erases everything you put us through. Her voice trembled, sharper than she meant. People glanced as they passed, sensing the storm in her tone. Nicholas didn't argue. He only said, low and steady, I wasn't trying to erase anything. I was trying to be here this time. The words lodged in her chest like a splinter. She turned away quickly, gripping Noah's hand tighter. We don't need you. But as they walked down the sidewalk, the sound of Noah's laughter floated up, light and free, and Emma's heart twisted with the truth she hated most. For the first time, she wasn't sure if she believed her own words. By the time Emma and Noah reached their building, she already sensed something was wrong. A cluster of cameras and microphones swarmed. The cracked steps outside her apartment. Reporters barked questions, their flashes exploding like fireworks. Emma, is Nicholas Carter the father of your child? Are you being paid off to keep quiet? Is Carter moving you into his house? Emma's stomach twisted. She pulled Noah close, shielding his face as he buried himself against her coat. The crowd surged, blocking her path. Her pulse hammered. This was supposed to be their safe place, their corner of the world no one cared about, and now it was under siege. Suddenly, a sleek black car rolled up to the curb. The driver stepped out, parting the crowd with practiced precision. And then Nicholas emerged, Emma's heart lurched. Not again, she muttered under her breath. He cut straight through the chaos, his gaze locked on her. You can't stay here, he said, voice calm but edged with steel. Emma's temper snapped. This is our home. Not anymore, Nicholas countered. Not while they're camped on your doorstep. Do you want Noah growing up with strangers shouting his name, flashing cameras in his face? Emma faltered, hugging her son tighter. Noah whimpered softly, his small hands clutching at her sweater. Nicholas's voice softened. Come to my house? Just for now. Until this storm dies down. He'll be safe there. Emma shook her head. And then what? You cage us in your glass palace, parade us like trophies. His jaw tightened. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to protect him. The reporters pressed closer, shouting Noah's name. Emma glanced down at her son, his frightened eyes looking up at her, wide and pleading. Her pride screamed to refuse. But her heart, the part that belonged entirely to Noah, knew. She had no choice. Emma closed her eyes, exhaling shakily. Fine, for him. But don't think for a second this means I'm yours to control. Nicholas's expression flickered, unreadable. He only nodded once, then opened the car door, and as Emma climbed inside with Noah clutched against her, she felt the last piece of her old world slipping away. The Carter mansion was quiet at night, too quiet for Emma's comfort. Marble floors gleamed under dimmed lights, and wide windows reflected back her uncertain face as she carried Noah upstairs. He fell asleep almost instantly in the guest room, curled around his dinosaur. Oblivious to the foreign luxury that now surrounded him, Emma lingered at the doorway, smoothing his blanket, whispering, "You're safe, baby." But her own chest felt tight. Needing air, she wandered down the hallway. The house stretched endlessly, corridors lined with art she couldn't name and vases that looked more expensive than her rent. She paused at a set of double doors ajar. Curiosity tugged her forward. Inside was Nicholas's study. Dark wood shelves lined with books, the faint smell of leather and cedar. On the desk, papers stacked with precision. But it was what sat off to the side that stopped Emma cold. A small silver frame, her breath caught. Inside was a photo, her years younger, hair tied back, laughing at something just out of frame. She remembered that day, a picnic, cheap sandwiches, Nicholas teasing her until she doubled over. Her throat tightened. He'd kept it. Her fingers trembled as she touched the edge of the frame. And then his voice cut through the silence. "You haven't changed." Emma spun. Nicholas stood in the doorway, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, his gaze fixed on her, not angry, not smug, just watching. She pulled her hand back like she'd been burned. "Why do you still have this?" He stepped inside, his presence filling the room. "Because I couldn't throw it away." Her chest ached. "You left me, Nicholas. You left us. Yet you kept souvenirs, like I was some unfinished chapter." His eyes darkened. "No, because I never stopped wanting the life in that photo." The words struck deep, dragging up every wound she'd tried to bury. Emma shook her head, blinking against the sting in her eyes. "Wanting isn't enough. You don't get to keep memories and ignore the people living them." Silence stretched, heavy and raw. Emma brushed past him, forcing her steps steady. "Don't mistake nostalgia for love, Nicholas. They're not the same." But when she left the study, her chest betrayed her. Throbbing with the dangerous truth, part of her wanted to believe they were. Emma couldn't sleep. The house was too big, the silence too sharp. She padded down the hallway in borrowed slippers, intending to grab water from the kitchen, but as she passed Nicholas's office, the door was slightly ajar. Voices drifted out, sharp, clipped, businesslike. She paused. Inside, Nicholas stood at his desk, video conference glowing on a massive screen. Executives filled the call, their faces tense. Unacceptable margin, Nicholas was saying, voice like steel. If they won't cut costs by 10%, we pull the deal. No hesitation. One man stammered, but the merger will happen on my terms, or not at all. Nicholas cut him off. His tone was final, brutal in its certainty. Meeting adjourned. The screen went dark. Nicholas removed his earpiece, exhaling. He turned and froze when he saw Emma standing in the doorway. For a moment, neither spoke. Emma's pulse raced. She'd just watched him dismantle a multi-million-dollar negotiation with the same cold precision he'd once used to walk away from her. Finally, she broke the silence. Which one is the real you? His brows furrowed. What do you mean? She stepped into the room, anger and confusion simmering. The man in that meeting, ruthless, cutting, untouchable. Or the one who sat by our son's hospital bed, looking like he might break in half. Nicholas's jaw tightened. Both. Her chest burned. You can't be both. Not with him. Not with us. You don't get to rule your empire with an iron fist and then expect us to just fold into your arms at night like nothing's wrong. He closed the distance between them slowly, his presence overwhelming. Emma, I don't stop being who I am at work. But don't think for a second that makes me less of a father. Or less of a man who wants you back. She shook her head, backing away. That's the problem. You don't see the difference. You can't buy your way into a family the way you close a deal. His eyes darkened, but his voice softened. I don't want to buy you. I want to fight for you. Emma's heart twisted violently. She wanted to scream, to push him out of her orbit. But every time she tried, he pulled her back with words that sank deeper than she wanted to admit, and that terrified her more than the cameras, the money, or the mansion walls ever could. The argument left the air thick and jagged. Emma stormed out of the office, but Nicholas followed, his steps echoing down the hallway until she stopped at the landing of the grand staircase. Don't, she warned, her voice shaking. Don't follow me. Nicholas halted, but his eyes didn't waver. You think I don't regret leaving? You think it was easy? Emma spun on him, tears burning. You didn't just leave me. You left us. You left me alone with a baby who couldn't breathe at night, with bills stacked so high I thought I'd drown. And you what? Buried yourself in boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. His face twisted, raw with something she hadn't seen before. I came back, Emma. Her chest tightened. What? I came back for you. After the company stabilized, after I clawed my way out of the wreckage my father left, I came looking. And you were gone. No address, no trace. It was like you'd vanished. Emma staggered back a step, shock rippling through her. That's not possible. I wrote to you. Her voice cracked. Letters. I just never sent them. I thought if you wanted me, if you wanted us, you'd come. Silence fell heavy between them. Nicholas's eyes darkened with grief and fury at the same time. And I thought you'd chosen to disappear. Emma shook her head, tears spilling. I never stopped waiting for you. Her words trembled, raw and unfiltered. Slipping out before she could lock them away, Nicholas closed the space between them, his hand brushing hers, tentative. Then we lost years. For nothing, Emma's breath caught. His touch seared through her, awakening the ache she had fought so hard to bury. She wanted to step back, to rebuild the walls. But for one dangerous moment, she let herself lean into the possibility of what they might have been, and what they still could be. The next morning, Emma woke to the muffled sound of voices downstairs. She slipped out of bed quietly, leaving Noah asleep, and followed the low hum of tension to the study. Nicholas was there, surrounded by 3 men in suits, board members, she guessed. The massive TV screen glowed with breaking news. Nicholas Carter, billionaire CEO, hiding secret son. Shocking allegations, Rock Carter innovations. Emma's stomach dropped. The headline was accompanied by grainy photos of her carrying Noah, of the hospital, of last night's dinner with Nicholas. One of the men turned sharply to Nicholas. "This could sink us. The press is calling it a scandal. Shareholders are already panicking. We need containment. Containment." Nicholas's voice was icy. The man didn't flinch. "Take control of the narrative. File for custody. Bring the boy under your roof officially. The mother, well, you know how these things go." A settlement. Silence. Emma gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth. Nicholas's eyes flicked toward her in the doorway, then back to the men. His jaw clenched, muscles tight, out. He ordered flatly. The board members sputtered, but the steel in his tone brooked no argument. One by one, they filed out, leaving the room charged with silence. Emma stepped in, her voice trembling with fury. "They want you to take Noah from me." Nicholas turned slowly, the storm in his eyes barely contained. "They want what's best for the company. They think stripping you out of the picture will solve everything." Her chest heaved. "And what do you think?" For a long moment, he just stared at her, the silence razor. Then he spoke, each word deliberate. "No one takes my son from me. Not them, not the press. Not even you, Emma." Emma staggered back as if struck. The man who had whispered love in the hospital room now stood before her like a stranger room, yielding, unshakable, terrifying in his resolve. Her pulse pounded in her ears, because she realized, in that moment, that Nicholas Carter wasn't just fighting for Noah, he was preparing to fight her too. The storm outside, her life had never been louder. By the 3rd day after the hospital, Emma couldn't even walk Noah to preschool without microphones shoved in her face. Reporters camped on the cracked steps of her apartment, shouting his name, asking how much money Nicholas had given her. Paparazzi followed her to the grocery store, snapping pictures of milk and bread as if they were evidenced at work. It was no better. Colleagues whispered behind her back in the hospital cafeteria, eyes darting whenever she walked by. That morning, her manager pulled her into the office, shutting the blinds as if to shield her from invisible cameras. "Emma, I'm sorry," he began, not meeting her eyes. "We've had complaints. People are saying the press outside is disruptive. Patients are asking questions." Emma's stomach dropped. "You're letting me go," he grimaced. "We don't have a choice." Her throat tightened. After everything, every night shift, every overtime hour, she was disposable. Just like that, when she stepped back onto the street, flashes blinded her. Noah clung to her hand, startled by the crowd pressing closer, shouting questions he couldn't understand. "Emma, are you moving into Carter's mansion? Do you love him or just his money?" Is he fighting you for custody? Emma's heart pounded, fear clawing up her throat. She bent low, whispering into Noah's ear, "Don't look at them, baby. Just hold on." But before she could push through, a wall of black-suited security stepped in, parting the crowd, and then Nicholas was there. He reached for them without hesitation, shielding them with his body as the guards pushed reporters back. "This ends now," he said, his voice steady, but his eyes burned. Emma stumbled into the waiting car with Noah in her lap, her whole body shaking. "You see," she snapped, tears streaking her face as the doors slammed shut. "This is what you brought to us. We were invisible before you. Now we're prisoners in your world." Nicholas's jaw clenched. He didn't argue. He only said quietly, "That's why you can't go back there. Not anymore. You and Noah will stay with me, where I can protect you." Emma turned away, staring out at the blur of flashing lights and shouting voices. For the first time, she realized the truth she'd been trying to deny. Her old life was gone. The Carter boardroom was designed to intimidate 40 feet of glass table. City skyline sprawling beyond the windows. Leather chairs that swallowed anyone who dared sit in them. Tonight, the air was electric with unease. Nicholas sat at the head of the table, his expression carved from stone. Around him, board members traded uneasy glances, voices low but sharp. "This scandal is bleeding us," one man said, slamming down a financial report. "Stocks down 12% in 2 days. Investors want answers." Another woman leaned forward, her tone cool, practical, ruthless. "The boy is a liability until we control the narrative. File for custody. Move him into the estate officially. Present a unified image. Nicholas Carter, devoted father. The press will eat it up." Nicholas's jaw ticked, his fingers curling into fists beneath the table. "You want me to rip him from his mother to save a stock price?" "It's not about stock," the woman replied. "It's about stability, optics. If you don't, this company could lose billions. And if you won't act, the board will have no choice but to reconsider your position as CEO." The threat hung in the air like a guillotine. For a moment, Nicholas said nothing. He'd faced hostile takeovers, global competitors, billion-dollar failures, and never flinched. But this, the thought of strangers plotting to cut Emma out of Noah's life, ignited something primal in him. Jordan, his assistant, cleared his throat from the corner. "Sir, if I may, this could be a fight. You can't win both ways. The company or the family. You'll have to choose." Nicholas rose slowly, the chair scraping back with deliberate weight. His voice was quiet but lethal. "You don't tell me how to protect my family." He walked out before anyone could answer, his steps echoing against marble floors. But as the doors closed behind him, the words Jordan had spoken gnawed at him. "The company or the family. You'll have to choose." And for the first time in his life, Nicholas Carter felt the ground beneath him shift. Emma found Nicholas in the mansion's library that night, standing in front of a roaring fire, his shoulders tense, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. He looked like a statue carved out of control and exhaustion. She didn't bother with pleasantries. The anger had been building in her chest since she'd overheard whispers from one of his aides. Custody papers, legal teams, a war being drafted on paper. "You're going to take him from me," she said flatly. Nicholas turned, his eyes narrowing. "Emma, don't." Her voice cracked, but she pushed forward. "Don't stand there and tell me this is about love, or family, or protection. Because if you file one piece of paper, One, you're not saving him. You're breaking him. He flinched, just slightly, but stayed silent. Emma's tears welled hot, her voice trembling with fury and grief. Do you know what kept me alive these past 4 years? It wasn't money. It wasn't some empire. It was him. His laugh, his tiny hand in mine. The way he'd curl against me when he couldn't breathe and I'd tell him it would be okay, even when I didn't believe it. Her chest heaved. You can buy him the best doctors, the best schools, the biggest house. But if you take him away from me, Nicholas, you'll destroy the only thing that has ever kept me standing. The room shook with her words. For a long time, Nicholas just stared at her, the firelight flickering across his face. His mask of power cracked, but only a little. From the hallway came a soft sound. Emma turned and froze. Noah stood in the doorway, pajama-clad, clutching his dinosaur. His wide eyes shimmered with confusion and fear. "Mummy," he whispered, "are you and Daddy gonna fight over me?" Emma's heart shattered. She rushed forward, kneeling in front of him, pulling him close. "No, baby. No, we'd never." Her voice broke as she tried to find words that weren't lies. Over Noah's small shoulder, she saw Nicholas's face. For the first time, real fear or human flashed in his eyes, because both of them knew the boy was no longer oblivious. He was caught in the storm with them. Emma carried Noah into the living room, away from the echo of that fight, but Nicholas followed. The boy curled against her chest, small fingers gripping her shirt. She rocked him gently, whispering reassurances, though her own heart was in pieces. "Sweetheart," she murmured, brushing hair from his forehead. "You don't have to worry about Mummy and Daddy. We both love you." Noah lifted his head, his eyes too serious for his age. "But if you love me, why are you mad at each other all the time?" Emma froze. Nicholas stood a few feet away, hands shoved deep into his pockets, the firelight cutting shadows across his face. For once, he didn't have an answer. Noah sniffled, clutching his dinosaur tighter. His little voice cracked with something that sounded almost like pleading. "I don't care about the big house, or the toys, or the cars. I don't even care if people on TV talk about us. I just want you, both of you, together." Emma's breath hitched. She kissed his temple, her tears dampening his hair. Nicholas stepped forward, slowly, as if afraid the moment might break. Kneeling beside them, he rested a hand lightly on Noah's back. His voice, for once, was stripped of power, of pride. "I'm sorry, buddy," Nicholas whispered. "I didn't know how much I was hurting you." Noah blinked at him. "Then stop fighting. Please, can't we just be a family?" Emma's chest burned with the weight of it. She looked up at Nicholas, her eyes shimmering, torn between fury and the fragile hope their son's words carried. For once, he looked just as lost, just as human. The silence stretched. Then Nicholas spoke, voice rough. "I don't know if we can fix everything, Noah, but I promise I'll try. For you." Noah leaned forward, wrapping his tiny arms around both of them, pulling Emma and Nicholas into the same fragile embrace. And for one suspended heartbeat, all three of them held on like a family that had been broken, but not beyond repair. The next morning, Nicholas walked into the boardroom with a storm in his chest. Cameras had swarmed the building's lobby, reporters shouting questions about the secret son. But inside the glass fortress of Carter Innovations, silence ruled. Every director was present. Their faces were masks of calculation, eyes sharp, waiting to see if their empire's king was about to fall. Nicholas took his seat at the head of the table. No preamble, no greetings. He set a folder down with deliberate care. "You want answers?" he said, voice cutting through the stillness. "Here they are." The folder snapped open. Inside, photos not of mergers or market graphs, but of Noah, a drawing he'd made in crayon. A photo from the hospital bed, a candid Emma hadn't even known Nicholas had taken, holding their son while he slept. "This is my family," Nicholas said, "and if you think I'll throw them aside for a quarterly report, then you've misunderstood who I am." A man at the far end scowled. "Nicholas, be reasonable. You're asking us to risk billions." "I'm not asking," Nicholas cut him off, his tone iron. "I'm telling you. If this chair requires me to betray them, then I don't want the chair." A ripple of shock moved through the room. One woman leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "You'd step down? You'd abandon everything your father built?" Nicholas met her gaze steadily. "My father built a company. I intend to build a life, and I will not sacrifice my son to keep a title." The silence that followed was thunderous. Some looked furious, others stunned, but Nicholas didn't wait for approval. He rose, buttoning his jacket with deliberate calm. "Consider this my line in the sand," he said. "I am Nicholas Carter, CEO or not, and I will not be told how to love my son." He walked out, leaving the board reeling in his wake. For the first time in years, the empire felt heavy behind him, but the weight in his chest was lighter than it had ever been. That night, there were no cameras, no suits, no marble boardrooms, just a kitchen table in the mansion that somehow felt too big for 3 people. Emma set down a pot of spaghetti, a little messy, the way she'd always made it when money was tight. Noah bounced in his chair, grinning as if he didn't notice the weight of the world pressing in on them. Nicholas sat across the table. No tie, no phone, just watching. He twirled noodles onto Noah's fork, patient, almost careful, as if learning how to be a father one small gesture at a time. Emma tried to stay guarded, but her chest ached at the sight. It wasn't the mansion or the power or the money. It was him, in this unguarded moment, choosing to be here, choosing them. Noah slurped his spaghetti noisily, sauce smearing across his cheek. He giggled, pointing at Nicholas. "Daddy, you're not eating." Nicholas chuckled, wiping sauce from Noah's face with a napkin. "I am. Just making sure you eat first." Emma caught his eyes across the table. For a moment, the world stilled her, shouting press, the threats, the years lost. There was just this fragile, imperfect family bound by a boy who wanted nothing more than both of them. Her heart whispered what her pride refused to say. Maybe, just maybe, they could start again, later. After Noah was asleep, Emma stood by the window, city lights stretching endlessly below. Nicholas came up behind her, not touching, just close enough that she felt the gravity of him. "This isn't going to be easy," she said softly. "No," he agreed. His voice was steady, almost a vow. "But nothing worth having ever is." Emma turned, meeting his gaze, and for the first time, she didn't see the CEO or the man who had left. She saw Nicholas, the father of her son, the man who still held a piece of her heart. Neither of them spoke another word, but in the silence, something shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility, and outside, beyond the glass, the world still shouted their names. But inside, for the first time, it felt like a home.